I think he should. He's their best player now that KD's absent. With the injuries, now Kevon Looney's out, Skip. We don't know what Clay. They say Clay's going to be fine. He's a little banged up. And if they were to go on and win, I think the media members, Skip, considering that he didn't win it, and I think if they look back at it, it's like, you know what? We probably should have given that thing to Steph because he did have a pretty good series. Once we look at it, his numbers were pretty good. He averaged 26 points a game in that finals. Although Iggy came in, kind of changed the dynamic of the finals, we should have.
You think so? That's Chris Broussard's theory. I'm not sure it's shared by his cohorts.
But how about this? It's human nature. Did you see what Steph did against Portland with no KD? Did you see what Steph did to Houston in Game 6 and in the last half of Game 5? That factors into it, Skip.
Okay.
And so when you factor all that in, this will be his 4th title in 5 years. It's hard for me to believe a guy that has that many titles, that's been an MVP, for him not to have a Finals MVP on his resume. I think that would be a little sketchy to me. So I think he is the overwhelming favorite now, and rightfully so. But I think he's going to get Draymond is going to get some consideration, as Jen mentioned. And don't sleep on this guy, Skip. Remember, Steve Kerr did this in the first one when he inserted Iguodala into the starting lineup. Old Boogie Cousins. Old Boogie put together a couple of 24-point games, double-digit rebounds. All of a sudden,
so you're saying Boogie could be the Iggy of this final?
Yeah, because think about when they played him in the first game, he played 8 minutes. I don't even know how Boogie's playable. Boogie might be unplayable in this series, Skip. He looks so bad. Come to find out, not only did Steve Kerr play him again, he put him into the starting lineup and played him 28 minutes. So I believe that Steph Curry will, if they win this finals, he will be the finals MVP. But Draymond could possibly average a triple-double. I just don't know if the point total will be high enough for him to get those kind of votes. But I would say there's probably a 70% chance that Steph will win the MVP.
So you think it could be in part a sympathy vote on the part of media members?
You know what, Skip? Sympathy is really a harsh word because, the thing is not like the dude is averaging 15 points a game. He is averaging 28 points a contest. But he's not shooting the ball particularly well. He's only shooting 40% from the field, which is not very good for a guy of Steph Curry's caliber.
I'm going to go a cut deeper on Steph Curry. And I love Steph Curry, and I'll say it one more time. I loved him before that draft. I would have taken him #1 overall ahead of Blake Griffin, said it on the other show. But I'm going to remind you of something. You just made your case, and it's the correct case, that he is now the favorite to win MVP, even though the favorite for Finals MVP the other night in the 4th quarter of Sunday night's Game 2 at Toronto, he scored 0 points in that quarter. Big 0. In fact, in that pivotal Game 2 in Toronto, Steph Curry went 0 for 0 from the field in the 4th quarter. He didn't even take a shot in the 4th quarter, and he's now in the proverbial catbird seat for MVP.
He is.
In that 4th quarter, Steph played 8 minutes down the stretch. He went 0 for 0 from the field and from the free throw line, and he had 0 assists, and he had 2 fouls, and he had a plus-minus, a -2. That's the catbird seat right now.
Yeah.
Okay, how do you explain it? Well, they won the game, and I'm not sure how they won the game because from the 5:39 mark all the way down to 7 seconds, they scored 0. And Steph Curry, the 2-time MVP, was the point guard on the floor for 8 straight possessions from 5:39 down to 7 seconds. 8 straight Golden State possessions, they scored goose eggs. Goose eggs. And he's in the catbird seat. Interesting. Well, he is because of what #2 couldn't do down the stretch. We'll talk more about that later in another question that we're going to ask about #2. But again, I still think he's getting a pass, #2, for what he didn't do down the stretch. And it canceled what Steph didn't even try to do because he didn't even take a shot against, as he called it, janky defense, a box-and-one defense.
Right.
He just couldn't even get a shot up over the last 8 minutes of the game that he played.
He might see that defense again.
Okay.
Considering.
And I'm going to say this one more time because I thought it was incredibly, shockingly significant. Steph Curry had issues at the start of the game. I'm pretty sure they were dehydration issues because he said he needed an IV to replenish his fluids, which would be the quick way to do it. You just shoot it right in your arm. but he said he couldn't get enough time during the game to get the IV, so he just drank and drank and drank. So he was dehydrating before tip-off. And this is a man who always amazes me. He does not sweat. He never gets wet on the floor. Like everybody else gets wet, Steph is just dry as a bone on the floor, right? So he's lost his liquid before the game, and you can't tell me it wasn't because of pressure, stress, expectation that he was putting on himself, because he knew how huge that night was for him with no KD.
Right. You can understand, Skip, because in the finals, they had never gone down 0-1.
They'd never done it.
They had never started on the road.
Okay, so let's reframe it as we both talked about last week and leading into this finals. This is it for Steph Curry. His legacy is on the line. This is make it or break it for his career. Now, looming before him are games 3 and 4 at home. They're by far the 2 biggest games of his life because there's no KD, we think.
Right.
And now it's very possible there's no Clay.
Right.
And this is just me on Clay. After I went back and watched again the game.
Replay of him.
Yeah, and of him limping off, it looks so bad. He's pulled up. He's seized up. Yeah. You know how that feels. You know.
Yes.
It just looks bad.
Right.
So the MRI confirms it's strained, whatever it is. It's something's wrong with his hamstring.
Right.
It's not torn, but it's not right.
Right.
Will you tell me, can you just flip that switch? It's the one injury you can't gut through.
Nope.
You cannot gut through it. Knee tendonitis, we're going to talk about number 2 in his. You can sort of gut through that because it'll kind of stay right where it is. And if you get hot, if you
once
get
you
rolling,
get it warm, you're pretty good.
You can go. But in this case, this guy, I just don't think he's going to be able to go. And if he tries to go, he's going to be limpy-gimpy. And if he pushes too hard in Game 3 tomorrow night, it will go full-on ripped.
Yep.
Okay? So, Steph, you're on. It's your baby because you were the one who came up so small in games 5, 6, and 7 of the 2016 finals as you had a 3-1 lead.
Correct.
You had it. It was in your hands, in your house in 2 of those 3 games, right? 5 and 7 are in your house on your floor. And I hate to even keep bringing up the stats, but even Game 7, he shoots 6 of 19. This is in his house against LeBron, Kyrie, and Kevin Love, obviously. 6 of 19 with Steph Curry, 4 of 14 from 3, and in the fourth quarter, he goes 1 of 6 from the floor, 1 of 5 from 3 with the crucial turnover that we talked about where he went behind the back, hot dog into the third row. It was a crucial killer. It opened the door for what was next, the chase down bicycle built for 2 block.
Yeah.
And finally, the Kyrie closer shot that won the finals for LeBron James. So the point is, he came up so small that right after that, he publicly handed his team over to Kevin Durant. Am I right? He said, we welcome you. It's now your team.
So in other words, he pulled a, what was that? In 1937 when he abdicated the throne?
Who?
And the King of England. His father had passed away, and he wanted to marry an outsider who'd already been divorced.
I didn't know where you were going with that.
He abdicated his throne. So you saying Steph Curry abdicated his throne
but he didn't want to marry outside the throne. He just needed help, man.
He didn't want to be the king anymore.
He didn't want to be the king because he tried to be the king and he couldn't close as the king. So all of a sudden, most people outside Warrior Nation, you know, the basketball fans as a whole, they're looking down at Steph saying, really? You just handed the team to him? You're a 2-time MVP and you won a unanimous MVP? And now you're saying, I can't do it without you? So most people think in the last 2 finals, he basically rode Kevin's coattails, right?
Right.
Okay, so now he doesn't have the coattails to ride because I'm pretty sure Kevin Durant's not going to play tomorrow night.
Skip, you know what? As I see Kevin Durant, he looks worse and worse in video.
Okay.
Did you see him in the video getting off the plane when they arrived back in Oakland?
Yeah.
And how is Kevin Durant going to play tomorrow, Skip?
He's not. And in fact,
how did he going to play? Okay, what,
it's
Saturday,
increasingly doubtful he's going to play on Friday.
Yes.
Which makes it increasingly higher and higher pressure on little Steph, right?
Yes.
And now to close off what happened in Game 2 the other night, you realize in the big picture, he shot 6 of 17 from the floor. My guy, Klay Thompson, shot 10 of 17. Yeah. Steph from 3 in Game 2 was 3 of 10. My guy, Klay Thompson, was 4 of 6. So I made the case before the finals started. A little bit of a dark horse pick, but I got Klay as the finals MVP. Where would they have been without Clay's explosion the other night in the first quarter?
Oh, they'd have been down.
Stave off the onslaught.
They'd have been down 15.
They would have been down 15. So he helped them keep their head barely above water, so they could barely breathe. And by the way, he goes out with 8 minutes left. He had scored 25 points with 8 minutes remaining.
Yes.
Well, if he stays on the floor, I think that total is going to increase into the 30s.
Yes.
And he's going to be the star of the night. And maybe his MVP odds head would have ticked up after that. But instead, he went out with 25, and he wound up the Golden State's high score for the night with 25 points because Steph managed only 23 total points, but he's in the catbird seat.
Well,
thank you for watching. You can subscribe here to get the latest from the show, and be sure to check out more of the best clips from Undisputed, or go watch a few other segments from our other shows on FS1.